Well, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Something to Talk About. If you had the thoughts, I don't know what to do, I'm between a rock and a hard place, or I feel stuck, today's show is for you. Take a deep breath, get comfy, and get ready for some solutions. Helping us to get unstuck is my very first life coach, Alex Carter. Alex, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, so happy to be here, Latoria. Thank you.
I mean, we were talking beforehand. It's a true pleasure because you were working with me during a time of which I truly felt stuck, and I had you in my corner to help me through a very tough time. So it's an honor to have you here to help me to inspire and encourage the folks at home. So for starters, let's go ahead and just kind of lay the foundation. What's the difference between a life coach and a counselor or therapist?
So coaches generally take the position that clients or individuals are fully capable of doing work to improve places where they wish to improve. That we have capacity, we have strengths, and we go from a strengths-based perspective. And we tend to not dwell too much on the past. We tend to talk about where we are now and where we'd like to go and how to get there. Therapists and counselors tend to talk a little bit more deeply about perhaps more deeply rooted issues that are getting in one's way, which is fantastic. And coaches excel at support and accountability for our clients, whereas therapists tend to work on healing older wounds. So.
Yeah, and you were very much that cheerleader for me, so I'm really excited for us to get started today. Before we get into some of the content of getting unstuck, can you give us a little bit about your background and history as a life coach?
Sure. I've been coaching for about 15 years now. They say that people start coaching before they become coaches, which was true for me. I was the one that people would come to and ask for, what do you think about this, or what should I do about that? So I decided that as the profession of coaching has grown, it became an option for me to work on, and so I've been certified for a number of years, and I really enjoy helping people discover that they have strengths that they might not have realized that they have, and then work with those strengths to move them forward to where they want to go. So.
And here we are now. So for the folks at home, I met Alex back in 2017, and I was going through a bit of a transition. And when I first met you, it was all lighthearted and fun, and then some things happened, and there you were to remind me that in tough moments, no grit, no pearl. And that's become one of my favorite sayings. So when I feel like I'm in the trenches and when things are getting rough, I always remember, whatever you go through, it's going to produce something very solid for you to thrive and to soar off of. I wanted to share something. So it was prior to us meeting, and I was going, once again, in a situation, I had reached a ceiling in a job opportunity. Loved the work, but I felt like destiny pushing me, purpose calling me. And I remember I was talking to my mother, and she says to me, Tori, you're not stuck. And I was thinking, yeah, I don't know where to go from here, but she's right, I'm not stuck. And in hearing those words, I went from feeling like I was lost in this big world that felt like an ocean that I was drowning in to feeling like the world was my oyster. So with that, I wanted to ask you, how important is mindset when we're going through things that make us feel stuck?
Oh, absolutely critical. I mean, two people can be in virtually the same position. One may feel stuck, one may feel full of opportunity. And I think feeling stuck is partly a mindset deal, absolutely. But I think really what's feeling stuck is that you've lost track of what you talked about, your purpose. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a big P purpose about how I'm going to change the whole world, but about where your values are. And when we feel stuck, we tend to feel like what we're doing and where we want to be are not the same place. There's a disconnect. Yeah. And so part of getting unstuck is finding that place you want to be, whether it's a career change or a relationship change, and finding ways to bring yourself to that place. And once you're aligned with that purpose, as you found out, it's a lot harder to feel stuck because you're moving towards something that is going to be positive for you. And everybody gets stuck.
Right.
You got stuck. I've been stuck.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that we have choices that we can make, we have resources that we can bring to bear, and we do have support if we will but reach out and ask for it.
I think that's key, and I'm hoping that we'll definitely come back to that a few times in today's conversation. Now, a common thing that I've seen, I learned this from one of the episodes I did called Everybody Needs a Therapist.
Oh, yeah.
Often we try to disassociate ourselves, and it's like, well, that's not me, that's not my issue. But what I wanted to do for the folks at home was make this a comfortable conversation, because like you said, at some point in time, we've all felt stuck. So without dwelling too much on the problem and spending more time on the solution, I did want to briefly just touch on some of the circumstances, so that we can all say, okay, I've been there, now what do I do to move forward? So I shared, feeling lost over the job. So sometimes it can be, for the folks at home, an unpleasant circumstance in the, in the present tense, be it a job, be it a relationship, or just feeling lost in the moment, that disconnect from purpose. Other times it can be that past issue. So to your point, it can determine the kind of help that you seek out.
Correct.
Now, once I feel like we identify that, okay, I'm in a position where I can use a cheerleader, or I can use a little bit of help on the counseling end, we can start making those moves to move forward. Right. That gap in between, that bridge between the issue and getting that successful outcome, there's some behavioral things that have to happen. Right. And we were talking about this briefly. The mind and the emotions can sometimes get in the way of that. So some of the things that I did some research on and found that people have as common issues, I guess you can say, in that transition is fear. Fear can make you just paralyze you, make you not want to do anything, make you afraid of a leap of faith, or it can put you in a position where it's like, well, if I don't do A, B is the only option. What are some of the, as we prepare for the solutions, what are some of the things we can tell ourselves, some internal work we can do to push past the fear?
So I want to say to anybody who is stuck that, again, it happens to all of us at some point or another. If it doesn't happen, then we haven't been moving at all.
Right.
Okay? And stuck can happen from a position that was comfortable for a while and now isn't serving you. The other thing I want to say is that we're wired from evolution to resist change. So even if we're in a stuck place, there's some comfort in that. I mean, my father used to say, better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. And so that sort of settling for where we are can eventually lead us to feeling stuck.
Yeah.
So one thing that we can say is, hey, everybody gets stuck and change is hard.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So a lot of people don't change because it is hard. So having said that, there are several ways to start to change your self-talk.
I'm going to have you pause right there.
Sure.
We're going to come back with those several ways right after this.
Can be afraid, no. I gotta say what I mean and I won't say, yeah. Gotta do it my way.
Small businesses drive our nation's economy, employing about half of the country's private sector workforce.
Here's coffee.
Thanks so much.
When you shop at local small businesses, you help the entire community thrive.
Hi, I'm Senator Ben Cardin. I support local small businesses for the good of our community. Let's help our neighbors thrive.
This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
I gotta say what I mean and I won't say, yeah. Gotta do it my way. Ooh, let go, just breathe, be me. Just
Welcome
be
back.
silent.
Life coach Alex Carter is here giving us great advice on what to do when we feel stuck. Alex, before the break, you're about to make a very important point about self-talk. Please take it away.
Sure. I mean, as we talked about before, the difference between feeling stuck and not feeling stuck is a matter of mindset. And one of the first things we want to try to do is to change our self-talk. So first thing to think about is that being stuck doesn't have to be forever. Okay, so that everyone has choices, and so I think when we say we're stuck, we feel like we don't have choices. So to open ourselves up to the possibility that we have choices is a very important thing, because I think it sends a message to the universe that we're ready. Okay, so after that, I encourage people to think about what do I want? What is my North Star? What is my heart telling me? Where do I need to be moving toward? And to give yourself over to some thinking, whether it's walking through the woods and giving yourself time, or a lot of people like to journal around these things, to help yourself know yourself a little bit more and where you want to be. And then you may say, well, I'm already, 50 and I'll never be, a banjo artist. I'll never front a band. But you won't do it if you don't try anything either. So it's important to think next about, okay, what is one step I can take today?
Yes.
And it isn't necessary to have a completely blocked out plan to where you think you want to go. Some people find it helpful, but it's not necessary. And so I would encourage people not to freak out about that and not to focus on that. But what step can I take today with what I have? Maybe if you're feeling stuck at work, one thing to do is to find something that you love to do out of work, so that you'll have some balance in your day. So to think about the things that you can do with what you have at this moment. Then to start to think about, who can I call on to support me? Who's going to be in my corner? Family, friends, people who are positive, who love you, who are ready and willing to support you, even if you don't know where you're going. I mean, you sort of have a sense of where you want to go, but you might not know how to get there. And that's fine.
Yeah.
The important thing is to take that step, because again, the universe will answer, I believe.
My good friend Eva calls those people in your corner your cheerleaders.
Your cheerleaders, your squad, your
Yes.
whatever your non-birth family, whatever
Yeah.
you want to call them. And even if it's only one, I mean, a lot of people don't have wide networks. It's okay. And at a certain point, you may feel like you do need a little more help, support, accountability, and that's at a point when you might want to speak to a coach, or if you're finding that you have some deeper-seated issues that are holding you back, then you might want to seek out professional help. But there are things you can do today to change your mindset, and even if you say to yourself, hey, it's going to get different. I don't know how, but to believe that you have those strengths and those capacities to move yourself forward.
I love that. I want to unpack a few things that you said, because as always, you dropped some jewels. The first I want to touch on is the power of today and the power of the first step. Because I feel like society, and especially now with social media, we're almost forced or bullied into trying to answer about tomorrow, about the long term. So when we say, hey, I don't know where, but I'm gonna apply for a new job, folks are saying, well, where do you see yourself 10 years from now? Listen, I don't even know where I see myself a week from now. So it's like, please, to your point, don't harass me about the next 10 years. How important is it to be in the first step, be mindful of the first step and of today?
Right, and what you just did was go from the first step to maybe step 25, the interview for the new job, right? So we have a tendency to kind of leap ahead. And I think it's important to just say, okay, I have decided that this job is not working for me, or this relationship is not working for me. So, okay, let me think about what steps I can take. And it's often building some kind of balance or a counterweight, if it's particularly in work, to find things outside of work that make you happy, because if you are doing things that are making you happy, you'll find people who are also doing things that make them happy, and you'll find those people along the way. I would say also, part of this is finding your own North Star, finding your own purpose, and listening to that, and not listening to the people who are going to bring you down, even if they are your family or your friends. It's time to get different friends. And it's time to find people who will support you in saying, I don't know what the next step is. They'll be like, great, let's find out, or I don't know what my next step is either. And the flip side of, yes, we have this pressure on social media, is we have fabulous resources on social media, and you can Google in, what's my next step, or how to get out of a rut. And there are tons and tons of resources, and there are bloggers, there are people who've been where you've been, who can support you in that not knowing.
And just having that, and so support, using the moment that you have now, and just deciding to go with that positive thought over the negative and getting ahead.
Absolutely.
I cannot believe that the time is wrapping up. We're going to have to bring you back again, Alex. Thank you for the advice that you've given. I think the most important thing I try to do for the folks at home is give some of those first steps.
Absolutely.
So to you all at home, if you've never worked with a life coach before, Alex is the perfect coach to call. We'll get some information on the screen for you of how to reach her. Thanks for joining us. Of course, we'll see you next time. Any final words as we close out?
Find what is important to you and pursue it as best you can.
You've encouraged me to do that, and now I've been able to share that with the folks at home. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for being here, Alex.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Can't be afraid, no. I gotta say what I mean and I won't say.